Hi, everybody, and welcome to Just Saying. I don't know where that came from. It is Monday, June 3rd, 2013. I'm Kim, and I'm joined here, as I am every week, by my lovely, vivacious co-host, Mary. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Kim.
How are you?
Hot, but getting there.
You're always hot, baby.
Woohoo. No, we actually enjoyed our 2 days of spring in this area. Now we're full-fledged July and August. I think I remember a little bit of spring. That was like 2 days where there were flowers that were just starting to bloom, and then boom, now they're all bloomed and gone. But I'll take that over some of the cold weather and crazy weather we had this past winter.
Right.
That's what my husband always says. You know, when you're complaining how cold it is in the house, well, think about those days. So anyway, so yeah, it's when is official summer kickoff? Is that June 21st?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we got a head start.
Yeah, we haven't decided here yet, apparently.
No.
It was in the 90s, and now it's in the 80s, and yeah. Yesterday it was really super hot in the morning, and then in the evening it was in the 70s.
Yeah, that's how, I don't mind it as long as it goes down at night for sleeping, because you're tossing and turning. Anyway, so what'd you do? You've got some, are you ready to share some exciting news?
Oh, I guess.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Let's see. This week we are closing on a building in Gladewater, Texas, and we'll be opening the Metaluna Boutique and Stones Shop.
Awesome. That is, you know, when you mentioned that you were considering doing this, I thought you would be perfect. You know, is this going to be mail order also?
Eventually, yes, we're going to put it all on the PEN site to where people can order from there too.
I can see you as a store owner, shop owner. You do fine.
The crazy old lady sitting in the back talking to herself, that would be me.
As you're making jewelry.
Yeah, and lots of it. I have bags of it now.
I can see you also getting involved in dipping candles. That'll be next on your list.
Dipping, I'm not sure so much about dipping, but maybe the votives.
That's true.
And
I love candles.
And bath salts. I'm going to start my own zombie nation.
That would be interesting. I think you're going to do a great job, and you have my blessing, and I'm looking forward to you opening up. You're going to name different creations, like, you know, you see people, they post stuff on Facebook, you know, this is called dawn, this is called evening. You're going to name things?
Well, you know how my brain works, so it may not be the best idea.
Well, yeah, I thought for sure you'd want to come up with a Mary G.
Well, of course.
One for every one of your animals and the name of every one of my cats. It could be interesting. But anyway, congratulations. And I'm not going to say I hope it's a huge success, because I know it's going to be a huge success for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't see naming bath salts Jimmy or Spanky, though.
As long as you don't come up with, like, fragrance toilet tissue, and that's what you put my name on. You know, give that to somebody else.
Actually.
Oh, I just opened up a can of worms with that one.
No, I was sitting there earlier. I was heading to the bathroom, and I thought I should put on the bathroom door at the shop, YOUR, your EHA Nation Station. You're a nation station.
Oh, jeez.
This is why I'm not naming things.
Okay, I forget what my suggestion on naming pieces after people and things. So, anyway, congratulations, and look forward to your grand opening.
Thank you.
I didn't have an exciting week, but had a kind of cool weekend. Well, I didn't. Well, yeah, you know, what am I saying? I didn't have an exciting week. I got to go to my son's, who's a police officer. They had the, May was like National Law Enforcement Month throughout the whole country. And they did their thing at his township on Wednesday, and we got a call. They don't like to let the officers know that they're going to get something, and they make a sneaky call to the family. And my daughter-in-law called me and said, "You're requested to go to this function." So over I go, and here he got one of the, I think it was like 4 awards that were handed out. It was for excellence, had to do with a drug bust. So we were there, got plenty of pictures, and I felt like the proud mom. And my husband, of course, he's proud papa. He's taking pictures left and right. And then he extended the proudness over this past weekend. Yesterday, he competed in a competition called the Tough Mudder. And I'm like, what's that? Because he told me months ago he was going to go for this thing, and he's been training for over 6 months. And he showed me the video. He brought me to the site, and home comes this video. And I was getting worn out just watching people do this. And it's 10 to 12 miles, and there's 20 obstacles. They have to climb walls, rope, rings, monkey bars. And the last thing, which I think was, not that it was funny, but his expression was, as we talked earlier.
Oh, it was funny.
By this time, they've already been in mud, 30 feet of water, the whole 9 yards, right? And the very last thing that they do is they run through this, I guess it's about 2 foot of mud and water, and there's these electrical wires hanging down. So while they're running through, they're getting all zapped. And my husband got a picture of him like, all zapped. But you know what? He completed it. It was like 95 degrees yesterday, and he made it. He looked like a tomato when he got home, but he had a great time. And I did post some pictures on Facebook, so if anybody's on my Facebook, go check it out. At the end, they hand them a T-shirt, and they get this headband. And he's holding it like this, all smiles. He's got mud all dripping down. My husband caught a really great shot. So I'm proud of him. And if you're listening in tonight, Rick, I love you, and I couldn't be any more proud. Anyway,
and if you're listening in tonight, Rick, congratulations, and get the tadpole out of your ear.
Yeah, we won't talk about his poor ear. He came home with a sore ear. So anyway, we have a really good show planned tonight.
Do tell.
You want me to tell?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I don't have a written up bio because I happen to know this person a little bit. Talked to her beforehand for like an hour. But our guest tonight, she started out as a photographer, and she's got her own company. It's called, let me see if I get this right, Past Images by Anita. And what she does is she takes photographs that you have that are maybe older ones, family heirlooms, special occasions, and that need some work because they're kind of delicate. She actually takes them and enhances them and makes them look beautiful. It's like a work of art and love for her. So how cool is it, Kim, that you're able to do a job that you really love? Because I don't know what that feels like.
That's very cool.
Yes, it is. She later went on to become an executor to a will of one of her friends. And that's why she's here tonight, to tell the bizarre story of what occurred on being a nice person. She's also an author of one book, and she's in the middle of writing her follow-up sequel to the first book. So tonight, we are welcoming Anita Jo Intenzo. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you so much, Mary and Kim. Really, it's a pleasure to be on your show tonight. Thank you. Do you want me to start, or?
Well, no, we'll get into now. I want to before we get into the real cool stuff, which isn't cool for you, but as a paranormal investigator, we're all sitting around listening, right, waiting for the good stuff. You went to college for arts, and you got into this photograph thing. Is that something that you did ever since you were little? Like, here's your little camera, and that kind of thing intrigued you, or it was just something that kind of happened?
It actually came out from me being into the fine arts, starting as an artist. I always wanted to be an artist since I was a little girl. And as I progressed, I went to Moore College of Art in Philadelphia and have a teaching degree in art education. But my first love was to do portraits, landscapes, and still life. And then because of the portrait experience I'd had. I was hired by a company back in '79 to start working doing photographic restoration. They had never had someone who had a fine arts background. There was mostly people who were just photographers or had gotten into the business. And I wasn't considering myself any type of professional photographer, but I did know how to recreate faces or arms and limbs that needed to be restored on these old photographs. So they hired me back in 1979, and I worked for them for about a year, and then I worked for some local photographers that were working and taking in photographic restoration along with doing 35 millimeter camera work. A lot of the work I've done in the past is to enhance, as you said, Mary, photographs that maybe need some tweaking concerning maybe wedding albums. I did a lot of work for wedding photographers in the past, doing work for portrait photographers. When you see these portraits and things in magazines, the people do not look like that. There's a lot of photoshopping going on. I proceeded learning to do the work by hand, and then in the late 1990s, I worked for a company. They hired me as an artist, but then taught me Photoshop. And then I worked for that company for about 4 or 5 years and became their head photo restoration artist for the company, and used a lot of the techniques as a fine artist, incorporating them using computer techniques, and have now become considered like one of the probably top photo restoration artists in the country. A lot of old photographs people have at these historical associations, they'll call me for consultations, things they have in their collections, and they're really not sure how do we go about preserving these things. And I get a lot of referral work from genealogy conferences, a lot of private work, people just by word of mouth. Of course, I've advertised in different periodicals, but it's been a labor of love for me to be able to restore people's families' treasures. Someone will come in with an old photograph thinking that it's probably ready for the trash heap, and I will take it and I'll say, no, I can fix this for you. I can restore it. And there's very little pictures in the past that I haven't been able to restore, but as long as there's an image there, I'll recreate things. If they have another photo of someone's face and the other face that they want to use as is not really that well detailed, I can use aspects of other features of the face and incorporate that into the other photograph to try to complete the photo. It's been many years of different, just trying different things, working with sepia, black and white, color photography, putting in different backgrounds. I tell people, photos do lie. That person might not be in that situation where you see them. Like I've done for my son and his wife. They had a picture of them in Mexican hats at a local festival, and then I just put them in the background of looking like Mexico. So then they sent the pictures to their friends, said, hey, we were in Mexico for the weekend, but it really wasn't true. I just fooled around and we had some fun with that. But that's really how it got started, because of the fine arts, working in photography. I don't consider myself really any type of great photographer, but I do know photographs, and I'm able many times to correct family histories that they think a picture is much older or younger than it is, and I'll see by the clothing or maybe even the hairstyling, and I'll tell them, guess what, you have a picture that's 15, 20 years older than you actually thought it was, and they are actually then have to go back and redo their history a little bit with their family members, because they'll see, wait a minute, she's telling me this photo's a lot older than what we thought, because they're thinking it's got to be after the Civil War, but photography came into being in 1830s, so you have a long traditional history of wonderful photographs being taken and helping people, date their work. So.
Well, speaking of helping people, this thought just came into mind. Have you ever had anybody approach you that are looking for their family and all they have is an old photograph that the person most likely could be dead, but now that we have Facebook out there, people are finding lost relatives left and right. I mean, for example, I'll use me as an example on this. My mother and father didn't get married. Mom got pregnant. They put me up for adoption, okay, and here I am at my age. I don't want to die not knowing where I came from, but all I have is this old picture that they gave me at the orphanage.
Okay.
Can you have anybody ever approached you in that capacity on trying to find who they were and who they belonged to from an old picture?
I've had people approach me, bring me an old photo. It's basically is trying to get copies made so they can put it out on the internet in a digital format that they want to do, as you're saying, maybe do a search through Ancestry.com type of thing. I have done some things for in the past, like with police work, where we had a missing serviceman, and they wanted to update what he might be looking at and looking like. And here there was a picture his parents supplied, and they had to upgrade it from a picture they had when he was on maneuvers, from then a portrait. So we had to like shorten his hair because the picture that they needed to go out to, out with the FBI and whatever they could, needed to be the most current. So we had to use different aspects of different photos and create what he might look like at the moment it was a missing person. And with your idea as far as a picture, that could be perhaps enhanced by just maybe seeing the surroundings or getting some idea of the picture, if it's in a room or if it's in an area, that maybe there can be something discussed from the actual picture. Maybe there's some other things in the picture that maybe some people might not realize, and if it's not out there, they might not know how they can help you. But you see me, Mary, I would love to be able to see your photograph and see what I could do for you, and maybe have you actually put it out at all, your photographs?
Oh no, I was just I know who my mom and dad are. I was just using as an example.
Oh my gosh. You punked me.
I got her, Kim.
But if it's an idea where somebody, I have been able, if it's the only picture that they have and they don't know if the other relatives have a picture of that, then that's the only one we're saving. And then other people come forward to say, we did not know you had that picture. And then they find out they have some other lost relatives, but I'm sorry. I thought you meant that it was something maybe that you had.
That's why I'm so messed up in the head. I don't know where I belong. But no, I mean, that's not even anything to joke about, because I'm looking at people. I saw a bunch of them like last month where they're holding up signs saying their name. I don't know if you saw them on Facebook, but there are a lot of them are older people. Do you know who I am? I want to know who my family is. This is where I was born, the date, and they have names of their birth parents, whether they were real or not. But I thought, how unusual or cool would it be that somebody presents you with a picture that you need to clean up so that they can go and use to find out who they are?
Well, that's probably happened in the past that people have asked me to do that for the older relatives or grandparents that we've cleaned up and fixed, where then the other relatives did not know, as I said, was in existence. And then they're all asking for copies of it too. And that has helped many of the families kind of draw closer together, because they'll say, we did not know this picture even existed, and this is part of our history that could have been lost because we did not know great-great-grandpa was in the Civil War, or this was his uniform. I did have a gentleman bring me a picture, and he's the only one who had it from a tintype, and it was magnificent, but it needed a lot of repair. We fixed it up, and then he surprised his relatives by making 40 copies of a 4x6 and putting that in Christmas cards, and then saying, guess what I have here? And they were just thrilled because they did not know that picture even existed. So I have been able, in some ways, maybe reconnecting people with ancestors or their images, and they'll say, wait a minute, I do look like Uncle so-and-so or Aunt, because these pictures show them where they came from, it might be where it's 100 years ago, but you see family resemblances, which is amazing to see that. So it's a unique field to be in, and it's very gratifying to help people, with that. And every job I do is unique. I'm never bored, because you never know what picture someone's going to bring you. Fix it, maybe make a collage of deceased members so they can have a family tree, right in a photographic poster type of thing. And it's really, whatever I can try to do, I'll try to do, and make it as unique as possible. And that's how I, from doing photos, work with antique dolls and other artifacts and things. And, it's never ending with the unique things that come by my way. So.
Do you also do like repairs on pictures? Like, I have a picture of my brother and myself when we were 2 and 3, I think. And it's like an 11 by 18, and apparently one of his many women threw it out the door and busted it, and part of it got ripped off.
Okay. That could be, if you have all the pieces, I scan them, and as long as you have the pieces, or even can recreate parts of the pieces that are missing. But what we do is you scan as much of the original as possible, because even though you tape the original, you're going to see the tape where it's not really going to be a perfect repair. But when you do Photoshop, after the picture's been scanned into the computer program, you seamlessly make the repairs, and the pictures look better than the originals a lot of times. This is what's so great about having the Photoshop as a tool. You can get a picture that's maybe faded, and through the tools of Photoshop, enhance it and bring back details that you can't see on an original, especially something that might be 150 years old. And tintypes, I've been able to scan them without too much difficulty, and get a really decent image, and people are just thrilled, because tintypes, they're under glass usually, and there's only one of a kind. So when you can make copies, but Kim, you should, if you could send me the picture, I could put it back together and scan it, and I could always send you a proof of the work that's being done on it, so you could see how well it's coming along. I'd be glad to help you out with that, Kim, to see if I could fix that picture for you.
Well, I think part of the problem with the picture is when she threw it, it hit the ground, the glass shattered, it tore the picture, but it also got wet, so part of the picture is stuck to the broken glass and part of it isn't.
I've scanned through the glass, Kim, so if you want to keep everything the way it is, and if you could pack it safely, I would say don't do anything else to it, but just leave it as it is, because I have scanned pictures through the glass, and that's better to get the image that way, because if you try to take it off the glass, it'll rip, and then parts will be missing that I won't know how to recreate. But if you think you can, send me what you have, pack it really good. I'd be glad to see what I could do for you on that. I've done things that people think that are impossible to do, and I'm usually the last resort. I'm the photo doctor, they call me. Try to help the patient from expiring completely. So we'll see if we could save the photo from it completely destroyed.
Well, speaking of expiring, I have to make the crossover now into the other stuff. But before I do that, this is another thing that's popped into my head. When you're cleaning up these pictures, and that's not probably the best word for it, do you ever see anything that doesn't belong in those pictures?
Well,
you know what I mean.
Normally, what happens with some pictures, people have a preconceived idea of what the image is, and I've actually had to tell the people, sadly, this is not Lincoln's reflection in the mirror of your ancestor's house, or, they think they have things that they don't really have. One brings to mind the picture of a little boy standing in a field, and people insisted to me, this is my great-grandfather holding a chicken leg in his hand during a picnic, and he got startled because Butch Cassidy or Bonnie and Clyde ran through the field, and he got startled, and he got up from the picnic table and is holding a chicken leg. And I said, I hate to tell you, there's no chicken leg in his hand. It's a little bunch of flowers. He was in a field picking flowers. I don't think he was startled at all by Bonnie and Clyde or some outlaw going through the field, because they have these stories and they don't make sense compared to what the picture is. But I have had to hide some things for people that they do not want in the picture. So that, to get back to the other way, might be like, say, a bride holding a beer can, and she's really sorry that that's a really nice picture of her, and the beer can does not look great, holding it in the picture. So I've had to put a bouquet of flowers over top of it, So it just, or wipe out people from like divorcing people. So we'll make them into a plant, or we'll just eradicate them. It's terrible to say. We have to erase them, make them into a background. So.
I was thinking more like a ghostie. You know how you have those pictures of people sitting in the chair, and then there's.
It's funny you say that, because I've realized now, I think I've actually retouched out spirit orbs in pictures, and people told me they were dust spots, because now that I am involved in this and see for myself what orbs look like on pictures, and I have them in my own collection, I've now realized I've actually taken off spirit orbs that have been on people's jackets and things through maybe 100 years ago and never knew that's what that probably was. And it wasn't, I don't think it was from the negative being, like slightly filmy or some kind of defect. I actually think there might have been some orbs and pictures and never knowing. I've been retouching pictures.
You never know.
Never realized I might be retouching out spirits.
Just wiped out, the whole thing. But anyway, speaking of spirits and whatnot.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go back to the kid in the field. Maybe Bonnie and Clyde scared him so much he dropped the chicken leg, and they handed him the flowers.
You know what? It could be. It could be. But it's just, I destroyed the family legend. That's all I did. Because I said, I could see by the, those were not, those were exactly at the time when the picture was taken. Those flowers belong in his hand. And what else would this child be doing in the field of flowers? He did not have a chicken leg in his hand. So this is the kind of things that are just so funny. Next, when you have a gentleman coming to you with a World War I submarine photo in black and white, and he thinks I'm Ted Turner who's going to colorize it internally for him, I said, he said, I want you to tell me what colors this was. I said, it's a black and white photo. Yeah, but with your computer, can't you tell me what colors the submarine and the flag and everything was, this German submarine? I said, no. I said, I'm not Ted Turner. I don't have the program. If you tell me what colors they are, I can recolorize it. But I can't tell you what originally these colors were. It's a black and white photo. So that's the kind of requests I'll get. They're totally serious. It's funny. It's so funny.
Do you understand that you could actually change history by putting the wrong colors and things?
Yeah.
Right. Next time they ask you to do that, make it the color of a chicken leg.
Sure, he was holding a chicken leg.
Oh,
Let me
my
fix
God.
that.
Oh,
That's too funny.
It's funny. It's too funny. But that's why my job's so interesting.
Well, speaking of interesting, you have a book that you've written about an experience that I don't think any of us would want to deal with. It's called The Estate of Horrors. You want to tell us a little bit about why this book came about and some of the things that went on?
Oh, I'd love to. Mary and Kim, you know a little bit of background, but for your viewers, in 2009, January of 2009, a dear friend of mine suddenly passed away, and I received a phone call, and it's one of these almost cliches where you'll say one day your life is normal, and then the next day mine became paranormal. With his death, immediately I had to take over the duties as an executress. Literally the next day after he passed away, I was in the lawyer's office, handed the keys to his house, saying, you have to, you're the executor, you've got to go there and see what's going on. He had died the night before on a Sunday night. I was called Monday morning, and they said, your friend is very ill, but we don't think he's going to survive. And I waited for their phone call as they moved him from one hospital to the other because he had a massive heart attack. Got to the hospital, he had already passed away, which I was furious with the doctors. I said, I wanted to be there and hold his hand. And I guess I had a lot of regret seeing him, that I had to identify his body. There was no other family present. And I had made a promise to him, that I would take care of things. He had asked me to be his executor, about maybe 2 years before that, never dreaming it was going to be that soon. He was only 55 when he passed away. But I literally walked into the unknown when I was handed the keys to his house, walked in the next day as if someone had just expected to come back. He never thought he wasn't going to come back to the house. But you walk into a situation where he was a hoarder, and his parents before him were hoarders. 50 years of collections were waiting for me to kind of start going through. Papers, things just left everywhere. And my son helped me to go into the house, and he just took one look at everything. He was, Mom, what are you going to do? This is incredible. He said, there's just so much everywhere that I had not been to his house for several years, even though we were very close friends. And he would come to my house for dinner or for lunch. And he would say, oh, I'm fixing up my house. I really don't want anybody here. But the last few years, he must have not been too well. I know when his mom passed, he was really in a state of grief for quite a few months. and she had passed in 2001, and his dad had passed in 93. But I did not know at the time he had saved all their things too. He never cleared out any of their belongings. And so I had literally 50 years of hoarding and collections. He was an anthropologist and a writer also to boot, which is very ironic. He was a writer and very well known in the community for his wonderful articles. But when I went in that night, I just thought, okay, I've got to start organizing and take it from there. And I'll tell you, Mary and Kim, it was not anything really apparent to me, anything that would be spooky or creepy. It was just the enormous job ahead of me, and that's what I really focused on. Okay, where's the financial things? Had no checkbook. I had to literally look through money order receipts to see why he wasn't using a checkbook. I had to go through bills, stacks and stacks of papers everywhere, uncooked food, things in the refrigerator that need to be cleared out. But what really started up within a few months, as we were just so deep into all this to get organized, find out where all his accounts were, contacting people in his will. Some of it had to go to Europe, some things. He had 43 items detailed in a 7-page will, and I had to be responsible of going through all of that. So that was a big job ahead of me, and paranormal was the last thing on my mind. But a few things started happening, which we didn't put our finger on right away, because my son and I, we've always been interested in watching the ghost hunter shows and watching movies and you know, just things like that for entertainment, and never really delved into the world of spiritual, you know, mediums and anything really like Ouija boards and tarot cards. That was just something that you saw other people on TV. But what really started happening was a few weird things occurred that we could not explain. We actually had something at my house started with only a matter of a few weeks. One of the objects I brought home that he had willed to me was an Indian petroglyph. It wasn't a real relic, but it was just a replica of a petroglyph on a piece of shale, and I had it near my fireplace. And within the week or two, he was cremated, and his ashes were spread out west, which I could not do. The lawyer did that for me. We had a memorial service for him, and a couple things happened right around the memorial service. We were having breakfast, and we heard this noise, something that was rattling, and then something dislodged and toppled over. And we went into the living room, and this piece of slate had toppled over. And my son kiddingly said, "Oh, it's so-and-so." I'm going to use the name Paul because I've changed his name as privacy for the family. So oh, it's Paul. Maybe he's letting us know that he's still around. I said, "Oh, yeah, right." You know, I that just probably fell over. And we didn't put two and two together. We saw something happen on a phone bill in, I guess, in January he passed away. By February, I'm doing the billing and taking care of all the bills, and I'm noticing there's this phone number keeps reappearing at 4:05 o'clock in the morning from his home. The call's being made from his home, a long distance call to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And we had the long distance company discontinue that because we just needed the phone line for a caller ID message machine. And I had my own cell phone, and we just needed the landline for actually a security system that we had put in to the house. And when I wasn't there, and a phone number kept coming up every week at the same day at the same time, and this went on for months. And we finally made the phone call. I called the lawyer, and he said he had no idea why this call was being made. So we called the number, and it would just ring in the distance, like very faint, and then it would connect and then hang up. It was like either an automated or something like a computer, but it was actually the call was going through, but then it would hang up. And this went on from January was the first date. On the 29th of January is when we had his memorial, and that's the first time it ever showed up on the phone bill, would be the 29th of January 2009. On this 4:05 in the morning, it started showing up. That's when we look back. We had seen February. I go, let's look back. In January, was this occurring? No, they were only charging us 7 cents for the 1 minute call. But I did call the company and told them, can you trace this? Well, it's a private number. I said, okay, why is it calling from his house? We don't know. Does he have a computer? I said, no, he only has a landline, no computer, no call, the only ID. And she said, we have no explanation why these calls are being made. And you said you had long distance taken off. So why are these calls going through? That the long distance number, if you have no service on that line, why are these calls going through after all? So they could not explain that. And that went on till June when we changed phone providers, which we had to. Then the call stopped because he had always been with that phone provider for 30-something years. And it's like, okay, you disconnected me. But we don't know why it was to this place in Bethlehem, PA. It's a private number, so we can't do more tracing than maybe have our lawyer at some point see if he could do this for us. We don't know why 4:05 in the morning every week for months and months that happened. So that started happening, and that was very strange. And then we had the part we had to clean up his room, his bedroom, which was stacked with statues from Greece, Rome, Mayan, Indian. He, as I said, he was an anthropologist, was a world traveler, and his room was like a museum. We started packing away his items into these crates, and we actually emptied out most of the room. And one day as we walked out and went into another bedroom, we heard this terrible crash. And my son just looked at me. He says, "Oh, don't tell me one of the bookshelves came down." We went in, and here there were these artifacts stacked in these Tupperware crates against the back wall. And they had been literally thrown from the wall and into the center of the room, and all the contents were spilled out. They were violently thrown. They were toppled over, and nobody had been on that side of the room. So we knew something was crazy.
I have a question for you. Now, it sounds like he had a ton of artifacts and things, okay?
Yeah.
Besides the phone call, which started, when you were doing the memorial, did you notice when things started to pick up? I mean, I know, and you'll continue with some of the things that went on at his house while you were there trying to clean it up. But do you recall any particular area of things that you were working with that kind of prompted the activity to kick it up a notch?
Well, that's a good question, Mary. We had that incident happen in March of 2009. By May, there was like no activity then. May of 2009, we had to get a sump pump dug up into the basement. They had a huge basement, and the basement was from floor to ceiling, packed with just all kinds of items, clothing, and not just artifacts. When we had to start moving things out from the basement area on the one wall where they were going to be using a contractor to break up the cement, we started things escalating. But in fact, 2 days before the workmen were scheduled to come, because we were getting water in the basement, things had to be done. The lawyer told me, do what you need to do, Anita, because we can't sell the house. There's water coming in the basement. My son got locked in a bathroom. We were starting to clear out things in the basement. He went into the bathroom, didn't close the door all the way because his friend was helping us, and he recalled saying, no, he didn't close the door all the way because we walked to go to throw some trash out. Well, the next thing I know, my son is screaming that he's locked in the bathroom. So we ran, and the door was frozen. You couldn't even turn the knob. It was just, and he was banging on the other side, so I can't get out. And then all of a sudden, the doorknob just turned, and he bounded out, so sweated, and he said, I can't believe the door just closed on me. I can't get out. I couldn't get out. He was terrified. And we said, all right, maybe the lock just went on by mistake. We couldn't have any explanation for it. The next day, we had to move more things from this one wall. And I have it documented in the book. It was May 27th, and that's when poltergeist activity, extreme, which I had never seen in my life happen. We were clearing out this, as I said, this one wall had to be all the things moved from a 45-foot section of the wall so the men could dig the sump pump. And as we were packing these other items and moving them to the other side of the basement, I had a friend coming to help us out. And it took us 5 months just to clear out areas of the basement. That's how packed the basement was. Like, you had to tippy-toe not to step on things. It looked like it was ransacked, the basement. It was so packed with things on the floor, on the concrete floor. Well, being that we cleaned out the floor area, and you could see the floor finally, well, when something fell, you actually heard it fall now. It wasn't that it was on top of something. So my son was in one part of the basement, and he said to me, what is going on? I keep hearing things being like thrown or something's just falling. And I wasn't paying much attention. I was so busy trying to get this work done before the men were going to come the next day. And I said, look, Chris, I don't know, maybe you dropped something. Maybe you dislodged something. It started again. He goes, wait a minute. He says, I stood up and I saw 2 cassette tapes just go right by my face and crash against the wall. And then I heard it. I go, really? And I saw, and as I was standing near the end of the staircase to the basement, I saw a black thing go right by my face. And I jumped back and I started screaming. I go, what was that? And we turned around and it was a black leather glove. And as this basement had 15 wardrobes of clothing. It was packed with anything and everything you can imagine, from his mother, from people just storing things down there, and you could find anything you wanted. And they had a grand old time. I called the spirits, had a wonderful time throwing things because there was so much to throw. But that was my first idea of saying, something just went by me, and I don't know where this came from. Then we saw a book literally start moving off the shelf, and then it just fell over. And I said, I didn't move that shelf. I didn't move that book. Did you just see that? And meantime, my friend had gone upstairs to throw some trash. He comes down the steps, and I said, look, you got to get down here. I don't know what's going on. And he was very skeptical. He says, what are you talking about? I said, no, something is flying. There's things flying around the room here. No sooner that he's like shaking his head, a seashell whizzed right by his face and went into a box. And he said, what was that? I said, that was a seashell. I said, you see it's in the box? I said, that's not anybody. We're throwing this. This is just happening. So this went on for hours. I'll tell you, Mary and Kim, if you've never been into a poltergeist situation, all you can do is like, did you just see that? Did you see that? Like, you're astonished. We weren't so much terrified as we were just like so awestruck. Like, I can't believe this is like happening in front of me. For
Well,
hours.
I know this all went on for like a year. I think you said it took to get the house cleaned out.
Yeah.
Anything physical happened to you or your son?
Yeah. Yes. As we were progressing and clearing things out, things started really revving up. Every time we went there, we would start going. We were putting 40 hours a week at the house. My son was part-time with work, and this was a good thing for him because the estate helped to pay him to help me clear out everything. And I had to know, by not knowing where anything was, you had to go through every single piece of paper. We're talking about literally tens of thousands of pieces of paper because I did not know where titles of a car were, things like that. But anyway, to get back to the attack, I was outside. There's a little garden house to the property, and that was filled to the brim, and we started clearing that out. And one day I'm inside the little shed, and as I turn around, and there's some boxes outside, and my son and my friend are helping us move the boxes. I'm coming out the doorway, and literally I'm pushed right into the boxes that are on the ground. And I couldn't even save myself. I didn't even have time. It took me by such surprise. My whole left side fell into one of the boxes, and I had bruises for like 3 weeks. And even my friend who was just standing there with my son, it happened so fast they couldn't even catch me before I fell into these packed boxes. And they said, what just happened? I go, something just pushed me. Oh, well, did you trip? I go, no, I am careful. I stepped out onto the bricks, and I had no control, just right pushed me. And that happened in June, and then in August, while we were inside of my friend's house, my son was going from one room to the next, and I had a camera. We were by then documenting things. We have still photos, audio and visual, different pictures from the house, but and EVPs like you would not believe. But as he's walking into the living room, I had just moved the camera from the kitchen because we were catching poltergeist stuff flying around in the kitchen. And as he moves, she said, I just heard something off into the hallway back near the back bedrooms. Let me go see what it is. And before I could even move the camera his way, I hear this big thud, and he's just pushed down. Someone grabbed him by the ankle, he told me, and he fell over this green little step stool and flat on his face. And luckily his glasses didn't break, but his glasses flew off his face, and he lay there for like 5 minutes and could not move. The wind was knocked out of him. He was taken by surprise. And I was petrified. I said, what happened? Are you okay? Should I call 911? And he couldn't even answer for a minute. He was just the wind was knocked out. He couldn't even answer me. And then he said, something grabbed me. And he said, it just grabbed my ankles, and I fell down before I could even save myself. And that was getting really very, very bad then, because it was escalating. It was escalating because the more that we cleaned out the house, the worse it got. They did not want us, as we know it now, they did not want those things removed from the house because they were attached to the objects. As we know it now, we know as my friend was still there until we could cross him over. and there's also other family members that came back, and they were just mad as anything that these objects were being dispersed. I mean, and then I was bringing things back to my house, which was not a good idea. But
Well, understand, if spirits are congregating somewhere or they're attached to certain items, you're
Right.
messing with it. They don't like that. So fast forwarding a little bit, because we have to keep an eye on our time here.
Sure.
You get everything out of the house. You bring some stuff over to yours.
Yeah.
How long did it take before you were able to sell it?
Well, we sold the house I guess the end of October of 2009, we did have buyers. We sold to contractors, and they then gutted the house, and it needed a lot of work. And we were very fortunate because we did not want to spend any more time there if we didn't have to. Because when we signed, the day that we signed a temporary contract with these men, we had all hell broke loose at the house. We were attacked. Well, we walked into the house. We had just gone to the lawyer's office, signed paperwork, get to the house, and there's a flood in the basement. There was a crack in the upstairs bathroom toilet that no one had used the toilet for a few days that hadn't been there. And we walked in, and it was literally, the water was pouring down from the first floor into the basement. And we called an emergency plumber, and he said, that's cracked in that tank. He said, that takes a lot of force for that to crack. He said, and I don't think you people are responsible for this, but he had no explanation. And we were attacked as we were trying to get the water, putting it into the sump pump, because we were expecting these people to come back and go through the house again. And we didn't know what to tell them. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. I mean, it's water's pouring through the ceiling. As my son is pushing the water into the sump pump drain, we saw a 7-foot piece of aluminum duct pipe flew over and went right near us. We had buckets of water that we had been catching the water dripping from the ceiling, and the buckets flew across the room because they didn't want the water to be caught. And we were calling for help, saying, please, angels, whatever, protect us. And the more that we asked for help, the more it escalated, because pieces of ceiling tile came off in our direction, and a ladder fell over, and we just ran out the house at that point, and we had called the lawyer on our cell phone, and his assistant came over, and she said, what do you need? I said, I need you to get here because we can't stay in the house. So luckily, we sold the house right after that.
Good deal. I mean, not that anybody's going to come finding you because it went through a realtor, but have you heard anything, or has it quieted down?
People have moved in. They stayed 2 years, and they were transferred, and then I guess it sold again. We actually did get back to the house after it was fixed, and my son said to me, most of it's gone, but you know why? Because it's all at our house now. And I had to agree with him, because as you backtracking what you said, Mary, from the time we sold the house, and we had about 2 months of peace and quiet at my house and just started to live my life again. And on Christmas Eve 2009, poltergeist activity started at my house, and it's been ever since. We've had activity on and off, as I've talked to you before about this, but it has its own place in my second book. That's where my second book has come from. First book is just about my friend's house.
I know that you had sent us over some pictures.
Oh yeah.
And I can't see the screen because I'm in a different chat area.
Okay.
But I don't know. Do you know if Eric's putting the pictures up?
Yes, he's got up the ones that say shadow figure in son's room.
Okay. Yeah, that was taken 2010. My son, he heard a noise in his room early in the morning, and he had a cell phone always near him. And he doesn't even really remember this, but he saw something, quick grabbed the phone, took a picture with the cell phone, and then he actually then went back to sleep. He just didn't think much of it. Then when he woke up, then he realized, wait a minute, I think I took a picture of something. And he showed me, and I said, well, Chris, go back to your room and take a picture of like where you originally took this, because we want a before and after. And there is a few things moved around actually in the after picture, because he was taking a shirt off and he didn't realize he should take another picture of the, like, show what it really looks like normally, his, a chair with a Philly shirt or something on the top. But that dark figure, we've seen that before in the house, and that terrified my son. He said, I don't know what that hooded figure is. And his room is quite active and has been active for a few years.
Well, he's been kind of got the brunt of a lot of things. If I can recall when you and I spoke, Didn't he get sick a lot from,
Yes.
he had actually had to leave that house because
Yeah.
for some reason it was tuning in onto him.
Yes, he's very sensitive and has since he's been become a psychic medium. He doesn't want the gift. He's actually tuning things out at this point. He's trying to block the spirits coming to him because they came to him quite actively in June of 2010, and that's all documented in the second book. But he was getting attacks of nausea and feeling like cobwebs were always on his face, and there was no cobwebs in the basement. There was actually no living creature, not even a bug would live down in that toxic downstairs basement of my friend's house because it had black mold and water had been seeping in for years, and it was the most horrendous smell that you can imagine was in that basement that we had to go through. But he's gotten the brunt of a lot of things and has taken it very good humorly, but yeah, he kind of passes it off, but he's quite in tune with the psychic forces around him. His bedroom, as I said, has been very active. We have, I think, an 8-year-old boy who has visited him in his room, and he stays near my son for past protection because he said he did not like the bad man in our basement. So go figure, like one spirit being afraid of another spirit. But yeah, the things that are going on in my house is, it's been crazy too. So, but I would advise people don't bring anybody's items from one house to another unless you know what they are.
Well, yeah. We as a paranormal investigator in my earlier days, I used to get calls from people, in the group. I was in a group. Come over and check out. We've got this activity going on. And, of course, you go in and you're looking around and you're taking pictures, and you see this odd-looking chair sitting in the corner. Where'd you get that? Oh, I picked it up at a yard sale.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It doesn't have to be a relative that left it to you. People just buy, antiques. It's strange though, Mary. All the antiques, like dolls especially, that I know people actually have a phobia about dolls, that they don't like them. There's actually a word, pedophilia. I think that people don't like dolls. But I've never had any problem with antique dolls. I mean, they've been well loved, and there's always a good feeling I get with antique dolls people have brought to me, to restore, redress, and it never even occurred to me that something like that. Now I realize this could be a possibility that might have brought things into my home, or with these antiques. But it was something that I guess I was very naive. At the very beginning, as I said, I was not a ghost investigator. I wasn't really reading up a lot on this, and we were very naive and at the beginning, and the more that we learned about the things, we documented it, and I guess we're very open. Maybe that's why the spirits thought they can come to us, because we were very accepting to say, well, that's not my imagination. I'm not crazy. I mean, you saw that, but we also have a lot of witnesses, people that right in front of them saw things and were part of a lot of activity. And my son's friends, they would come and help us out for a while, but then they would not come back to the house after a few times. They would be too scared. They said, well, we wore out. We wore out our welcome. We don't want to go back there.
So tell us about some of the pictures you sent over. Were pictures of strings made into, I don't know what it was made into. Where are these coming from?
They started a couple of years ago, Mary and Kim, out of nowhere. It was a blue silk thread, maybe 3 or 4 separate threads on my son's work table. He's an artist and a model maker. He does a lot of painting he has a painting station in our house. And on top of his paints was his blue silky threads. And he said to me one day, Mom, your threads are on my paints. And I said, no, they're not mine. He knows sometimes I would sit near where he was, and I hand sew doll costumes sometimes. But I recognized, I said, no, that's not anything that I've worked with. I said, that really looks like raw silk, these threads. So I didn't think much of it, and I didn't throw them out, though. I don't know why. Something told me not to throw them out. I just laid them on top of my coffee table that night. The next morning I came down, and I saw the blue threads on I have a brown carpeting, and the threads were on the carpet. But when I took them up, they were made into a loop pattern. They actually had been hand-worked. And I called my son. I said, look at this. I said, remember those threads last night? He goes, yeah. I said, look at them now. He goes, yeah, somebody worked them. He said, who did that? I go, I don't know. So that was the first one that was in 2010, I think, that it's documented on pictures. And it happened about a year later. I was just walking to the kitchen, come back, and there's these blue threads. I saw immediately on my carpet, and I picked it up, and it's all hand worked again, but really elaborate. And I go, oh, darn. I said, what is this? And I just say, thank you, whoever did that. This is really beautiful. I'm thinking it's got to be a woman doing this because it looks really delicate and like lace, or somebody is working. So anyway, that happened. And then a couple days later, as I'm sweeping my steps to go upstairs, there's another one on the step right in front of me. And my son's friend was in back of me. In fact, he was ready to go upstairs to see my son. And I said, well, wait a minute, Danny, I'm trying to do something here. And he goes, okay. He said, well, did you get that thing that's on the step? And yeah, I picked it up, and it's another handwork thread. And this was blue also. And I just was shaking my head. I said, oh boy, I said, I saw that before I swept it up. No, she made me see it on that step as I'm approaching it, or whoever wants me to see this. So then it was a lull of months, and then it started up again. And this time it was in the bathroom where my son told me later, I went to the bathroom, saw it on my tan tile, this red thread. And I picked it up and I go, that looks like that's been worked, but I'm not really sure. And I put it on the windowsill for my son to see when he woke up to go into the bathroom. And he said to me, Mom, what is this? I said, that's a red thread that's been worked, I think. He said, that red thread came from my T-shirt 3 days ago, and I stuck that in the trash. It was a real long red thread from my new T-shirt. I put it in the trash. I said, well, that wasn't in it. I said, that was on the floor, and looks like it's been worked. So we just kept documenting these. And then it really revved up this past 3 or 4 months, from January till, I just got one two weeks ago. It's almost like they were every week on a Sunday. I've been getting these handwork threads. Now they're different colors. It was red, there's purplish gray, black. And my son called me. I was at my mom's, where I take care of her in the evenings. And he called me Sunday night. He says, Mom, the lady left you another gift. I said, what? He said, it was on the steps. It's black this time. He said, you have to see it. It looks like an eternity knot in the middle.
I know that you have been posting some of these on Facebook.
Yeah.
Asking, do you recognize this, the design? Anybody come forward?
Someone emailed me. She said, check out a website for the hair weaving from the Victorian times. Apparently there's a society that does this ancient or very unique technique of taking human hair and weaving it into very, very fine jewelry. And they did this back in the Victorian times, which I recognized it. When I first saw it, I thought, does it look like crocheting? Because my grandmother crocheted, and I have her needles and things packed in the basement. But it's actually too fine for maybe even, it's so thin, the threads, it's like somebody took a needle and worked it, because it's almost like lace, or it's so fine, these.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the pictures, and it is very unique.
It reminds them of morning jewelry. It said it reminds them of the same kind of loops that somebody would do maybe with Victorian morning hair weaving. That's the closest.
I mean, that kind of stuff you can deal with getting. It's the other stuff. And we're very close out of time. And I know Kim had one more question that she wanted to ask before we close.
Sure.
You said recently, things were getting a little crazier. Is that when you brought Bill Bean in? Yes.
Bill Bean was at my house March 9th, and he spent 4 hours at my house blessing and doing invocations, blessing my son and I. And things were very, very good for a matter of a few months. We're seeing some things coming back again a little bit. We feel that a lot of the dark entities were dealt with, that Bill did his job, and we're eternally grateful to him for that. But we feel that there is still some things going on, maybe resident ghosts, that they decide they have not left. And someone has said to me, if you allow the good spirits to still stay, or you're okay with that, they're allowing other things to still come through, maybe. So, maybe you've got to, it might be where we're going to have to deal with, it's all or nothing. Everything's going to have to be out of my house as much as possible. In fact, the artifacts are going to be put up on auction at some point, and we're going to be getting rid of my friends, all these artifacts, because there's ancient artifacts that we know that can't be good, that we have some of them in the house, some of them are packed in another location. But it's an ongoing thing. I mean, we're not 100% there having a normal life again, and I don't think it's going to be normal, for even another short amount of time. But we're hoping things might clear out and maybe have a normal life again. But I tell people, stay tuned. I hope they're on the journey with me, because I want people to understand this could happen to anyone. You don't even know what you're walking into when you become an executor. Know what you're getting yourself into. Know the people, to see if they have their things in order, that you don't get into the heart. It took me a couple of years to get his estate settled, even though the house was sold. It was just draining, from my life, and I know I've been vulnerable because of the constant stress, dealing with his death and everything else associated with it. And I become a prime target, because they like vulnerable people. Spirits will take advantage of you. We're just hoping that the things that are being left for me, I'm not being taken in by a spirit just to get in their good graces, and then maybe there's something sinister behind it. So I don't know. We'll have to see if we can do something else about it, and stay tuned for. We have to even investigate our backyard to my house. Is on a 1800s property, so it's very much the area I think is affording paranormal activity. It just happens to be you're at the right place at the right time, maybe kind of thing. And having me on your show, I'm hoping other people would maybe identify with this, and maybe they'll get something out of this, to protect themselves too.
Well, Anita, unfortunately, we're running out of time. And we don't want to give away too much so that people will actually go out and buy the book once it gets published.
Oh, we haven't even scratched the surface. So they'll have to buy the book when it's out if they want to know all the other parts of the story, which is more incredible than what I've even told you. So there's a lot more.
Well, where can our viewers find you for
AnitaJoIntenzo.com/A State of Horror. If you just go AnitaJoIntenzo.com, my website, it'll take you to that actual page of A State of Horror, the paranormal story. It'll give you a little bit of background on other things that are happening. You can visit me on my Facebook page, A State of Horror, or Anita Jo Intenzo, and I always have things up on there, pictures and things, and let you know what's going on. I have a YouTube video of my book trailer, which you can find that on the Estate of Horror Facebook page. You'll see the link for that on there. And, I've got an agent who's working really, really hard to get this book out. And we have publishers right now that are reviewing the book, and hopefully it'll be out soon. We can tell viewers that the book will be out, but we'll have to see. It's a waiting game, when you are dealing with agents and publishers. So but it's all good.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we wish you so much luck with the publishing, and we'd like to thank you so very much. And I would also like to thank you for the two pieces of jewelry that you sent for the Paracon.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That was, as I said, if we do have a paranormal auction, there's going to be literally hundreds and hundreds of items we're going to put up for sale that were from the actual estate. And, a lot of things, they're all kind of historical and just everyday objects. But my friend just collected thousands and thousands of things. I mean,
you're gonna put a warning label with these things.
Yeah,
caution: if you purchase this, you just might.
Yeah, a certificate of authenticity came from the State of Horror. Oh yeah, I'm gonna warn people. But some people they want something from a crazy place. But just hopefully they won't have to get back to me and say, yeah, things are flying through the air since I bought that shawl or that Afghan from your store. But I want to thank you so much for your time and having me on your show tonight. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. We appreciate you coming on. I know it's tough rehashing it over and over, but I think also it's good therapy for you. And like you said, you're getting the word out. Be careful what you go home with.
Oh yeah, definitely. And as you know, you have your own stories too, Mary. I mean, the cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale. So.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we have to say goodnight to you and talk a little bit about our show next week. But I will be in touch.
Thank you so much, Mary and Kim. And Eric, thank you very much, all of you. You've been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, Kim. Gives me a new insight into going to an antique shop.
We figured out that if I reach across to my craft table that my hand goes into your ear. On the video, it like looks like it's going into your closet or behind your head. It's funny.
Leave it to you. So anyway, next week's show, who do we have on?
I don't know. Who do we have on? Let's see. Jen DeVilliers. She is a paranormal researcher out of Liberty, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
But
But
don't forget, people, if you haven't got this yet. What?
Oh,
if you haven't got this yet, you need to get this right here.
I can't see you, so I can only assume what you're holding up.
It's called Animals Impacting the World.
That's right, Animals Impacting the World. You don't have your copy? Shame on you.
I just put the book in her closet.
I can probably literally toss it. There you go. Oh, well, my poor closet. It's been crazy today. But anyway, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And, oh, wait, we have an announcement. We have a new show coming up tomorrow, correct?
We do, and we're
Yeah,
all
I'm
kinds
blew
of
out about that show. Go ahead.
excited. Tomorrow night, we got a new show coming out. I'm not even going to say the name. I'm going to let little Missy in the chat room type the name because I think it's two side chicks or A View from the Fringe with Patty, Zachus, and D-Dub. And
Yeah.
you must tune in for this because if they're anything like they were up at the Shanley, Lord help us all.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Anyway.
Just make sure that they either both have a lot of wine or a lot of coffee and everybody will be safe.
That's right. Yeah, she said she's going to scare us. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and stay tuned to all the fantastic shows this whole week, including Pima TV.
Yes, and this Friday, our special guest is Martha Hazard Decker from East Texas Paranormal.
All right. Sounds good. Only one thing left to say.
Say good night, Mary.
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Yesterday it was really super hot in the morning, and then the evening it was in the 70s.
Yeah, that's how, I don't mind it as long as it goes down at night for sleeping, because you're tossing and turning. Anyway, so what'd you do? You've got some, are you ready to share some exciting news?
Oh, I guess.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Let's see. This week we are closing on a building in Gladewater, Texas, and we'll be opening the Metaluna Boutique and Stones Shop.
Awesome. That is, you know, when you mentioned that you were considering doing this, I thought you would be perfect. You know, is this going to be mail order also?
Eventually, yes. We're going to put it all on the PEN site to where people can order from there too.
I can see you as a store owner, shop owner. Do fine.
The crazy old lady sitting in the back talking to herself, that would be me.
As you're making jewelry.
Yeah, and lots of it. I have bags of it now.
I can see you also getting involved in dipping candles. That'll be next on your list.
Dipping, I'm not sure so much about dipping, but maybe the votives.
That's true.
And
I love candles.
And bath salts. I'm going to start my own zombie nation.
That would be interesting. I think you're going to do a great job, and you have my blessing, and I'm looking forward to you opening up. You're going to name different creations, like, you know, you see people, they post stuff on Facebook, you know, this is called dawn, this is called evening. You're going to name things?
Well, You know how my brain works, so it may not be the best idea.
Well, yeah, I thought for sure you'd want to come up with a Mary G.
Well, of course.
One for every one of your animals and the name of every one of my cats. It could be interesting. But anyway, congratulations. And I'm not going to say
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Just Saying. I don't know where that came from. It is Monday, June 3rd, 2013. I'm Kim, and I'm joined here as I am every week by my lovely, vivacious co-host, Mary. Hi, Mary.
hi, Kim.
How are you?
Hot, but getting there.
You're always hot, baby.
Woohoo. No, we actually enjoyed our 2 days of spring in this area. Now we're full-fledged July and August. I think I remember a little bit of spring. That was like 2 days where there were flowers that were just starting to bloom, and then boom, now they're all bloomed and gone. But I'll take that over some of the cold weather and crazy weather we had this past winter.
Right.
That's what my husband always says, you know, you're complaining how cold it is in the house. Well, think about those days. So anyway, so yeah, it's when is official summer kickoff? Is that June 21st?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we got a head start.
Yeah, we haven't decided here yet, apparently.
No.
It was in the 90s, and now it's in the 80s, and yeah.
because I know it's going to be a huge success for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't see naming bath salts Jimmy or Spanky, though.
As long as you don't come up with like fragrance toilet tissue, and that's what you put my name on, give that to somebody else.
Actually.
So, I just opened up a can of worms with that one.
No, I was sitting there earlier. I was heading to the bathroom, and I thought I should put on the bathroom door at the shop, YOUR, your EHA Nation Station, urination station.
Oh, jeez.
This is why I'm not naming things.
Okay, I forget what my suggestion on naming pieces after people on things. So, anyway, congratulations, and look forward to your grand opening.
Thank you.
I didn't have an exciting week, but had a kind of cool weekend. Well, I didn't. Well, yeah, what am I saying? I didn't have an exciting week. I got to go to my son's, who's a police officer. They had the, May was like National Law Enforcement Month throughout the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And they did their thing at his township on Wednesday, and we got a call. They don't like to let the officers know that they're going to get something, and they make a sneaky call to the family. And my daughter-in-law called me and said, "You're requested to go to this function." So over I go, and here he got one of the, I think it was like 4 awards that were handed out. It was for excellence, had to do with a drug bust. So we were there, got plenty of pictures, and I felt like the proud mom. And my husband, of course, he's proud papa. He's taking pictures left and right. And then he extended the proudness over this past weekend. Yesterday, he competed in a competition called the Tough Mudder. And I'm like, what's that? Because he told me months ago he was going to go for this thing, and he's been training for over 6 months. And he showed me the video. He brought me to the site, and home comes this video. And I was getting worn out just watching people do this. And it's 10 to 12 miles, and there's